I want to start by pointing out wisdom from Marcus Garvey, that a people without knowledge of their past history, culture, and origin is like a tree without fruits. So as we commemorate 11 March, we need to always remember that we need to educate ourselves, we need to educate future generations about our past. Zimbabweans have been through a lot of dark past, as Bishop has said. As we commemorate this day, 11 March, we should not forget about Gukurahundi, atrocities and genocide. We should not forget about 13 September 2006, brutalization of trade union activists and leaders. We must not forget about the displacements in Chiadzwa and the colonial displacements now in Chilonga. And this points out to a state that is clearly against its people. Today, as we reflect, we see a state that has become the most dangerous thing against its citizens. Climate change is there, droughts are there, many other natural accidents and global pandemics like COVID are there. But the biggest threat to the security of Zimbabweans today is the state, as led by the current government. So it is said that we lost people on 1 August 2018, defenseless people in the streets of Harare. It is said that we lost people in January 13 to 16 January 2019, defenseless citizens against a heavily armed state. And we need to reflect all these issues today and chart the way forward. So to me, the words of the late hero, national hero, Dr. Joshua Nkomo, rings truth in my ears. That the hardest lesson of his time came late, and it was that a nation can win freedom without its people becoming free. We are talking about this situation today when, in our view, the Zimbabwe state is now a failed state. It is a failed state that has also lost legitimacy. We can argue academically and use all the intellectual ways that we have, but you will see that Zimbabwean state is a failed state when you fall ill and you go to Parenyatwa, Pilo, Sakub Mutare or General Hospital and you fail to get attention or even a painkiller. You will realize that Zimbabwe is a failed state when you send your kids to schools on 15 and 22nd this month and there are no teachers at school because teachers are incapacitated. So from a working class perspective, nothing is working in this country. Zimbabwe is a failed state that has failed to provide the security of persons. In fact, the government has turned rogue and it is operating like a militia, abducting citizens, brutalizing citizens. Some are sexual harassed, unlawful detention and pre-trial detentions. So this points to a state that has failed to discharge its major obligation of providing security to citizens. We also have a failed state in the form of a state that is failing to provide public services. There's nothing that is working in this country. Yesterday I was reading about a sad story of a nurse who has gone on GoFundMe processes to seek money for her to get MRI scan. Someone who is working for the health services cannot afford MRI scan. The working class, majority of them are earning $25. That's 25 loaves of bread per month. The domestic workers are earning $9. That is 9 loaves of bread for the whole month. To book an ambulance if you are COVID positive or you suspect that you are positive, you need $190. So a domestic worker has to work for 30-something months and not spending a cent for them to book an ambulance. To be accommodated or to be accepted at a hospital and COVID-19 facility, you need a minimum of $800. A domestic worker has to work for ages. Those who are working for and earning minimum wages of $25, they will have to work for ages without spending anything to save life. So we have a state that is now protecting and safeguarding the interests of the few at the expense of the majority. And this is a big issue that we are facing today. And what are the reasons of that state failure? Bishop Magai has already spoken about it. It's corruption, it's autocracy, dictatorship, it is state capture. The state is no longer functioning, it has been captured by the few. It is a whole lot of poor governance and mismanagement of the economy. It is brutality against the citizens. So, Chairman, without wasting much of your time, what do we need to do? We in the labor movement believe that we actually have a generational call to fight against the twin evils. This is a big civic duty that we can't run away from. The twin evils that we have are repression and neoliberalism induced misery. Every one of us is in misery. People are working for nothing. And the reasons are repression and neoliberalism. So some in the trade union movement believe that unions must be apolitical. We think this is ignorance, and we want to point out that the trade union must play politics in order to free the class, the working class. I think Harold Lasso made it easy for us. What is politics? Politics simply who gets what, when, and how. So this is why the trade union movement must be at the forefront. We know that all of our benefits, our salaries, our pensions, even reproductive choices, and everything that a human being deserves is determined by politicians. The men and women in cabinet, the men and women in parliament are determining our lives, and I'm making a call to all workers that this is the time to shrug off the ignorance and focus on freeing ourselves. So, Chairman, there's no any other way, a bottom-up approach. It has to be grassroots based. That is what it was in 1999 on the National Working People's Convention, and I think now is the time for the second National Working People's Convention. That is what it was on 11 March on the Save Zimbabwe campaign. And we need to quickly organize ourselves and come together. There is no way to avoid class collaboration. We also need to clarify the most important agenda. What is it that we are fighting for? I know my brothers and sisters in politics, they want political power and they're looking for political freedom. We need political freedom, but we are also fighting for total freedom, including social and economic progressive change for the working class, working men and women in this country. So we need to clarify that agenda. We need to mobilize for that agenda. 11 October was a mass mobilization exercise, and we can't run away from it. We need to mobilize seriously, but above all, we need to take action. It is only power of the collective citizens that can withstand the power of the armories possessed by the armies of the world. So we need to take action. We need all our activities to be based on a clear ideological position. And for us, is the fight against neoliberalism, is the fight against fascism, is the fight against dictatorship, it is the fight for total freedom. And Comrade Chair, thank you very much, but allow me to end with a quotation from John Lewis. Our struggle is not a struggle of 1 day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is not a struggle of one judicial appointment or presidential term. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, or maybe even many lifetimes, and each one of us in every generation must do our part, and that is what we are supposed to do. It may be tough, some may be disillusioned, some may lose lives, some may also be co-opted, some may be through cohesion join them, some may lose hope, but it has to be done. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Comrades, I think we agree completely that the struggle is taken long. We also agree that the environment is even worse. We now are under a military junta. A military junta means suspension of all constitutional rights and any civic and political rights. So the situation is now worse than what it was. But we also realize and This is why I premised my submissions on Marcus Garvey, that we need to learn from our history. I think the situation was the same in 1960s, because the trade unions have been fighting since 1920, 1927. And since 1940s, the trade unions were calling for stayaways, for strikes with Benjamin Burombo, with Joshua Nkomo. Imagine from 1940 to 1960, 20 years, and you appear to be in a wilderness. Imagine from 1940 to 1979, even on the eve of independence, there are some people who were probably losing hope and disillusioned. So that's the nature of this struggle. The civil rights movement in America took ages. Women took over a century to attain political rights. The black movement took many years. The dream that was dreamed by our reverends took centuries for it to be, for people to see some light, and they're still fighting for that dream. So this is what we want to all focus ourselves on. The struggle is not going to be easy. We never emphasized there was euphoria, ephemeral consciousness in 1999. People were thinking that they were moving straight away and gaining political freedom and economic freedom. But I think we have learned a lot. So the struggle is not going to be simple. It's going to take time. But what do we need to do? Which also dovetails with the second question that was raised, that we are continuously talking about issues. I think what we need to do is to have continuous civil resistance. We have not been consistent. We are here today commemorating 11 March 2007. The other time we're commemorating 13 September 2006. The other time we're commemorating 1 August 2018. 13 January 2019. So we can no longer sustain the struggle through once-off and yearly pilgrimages of a struggle. We need a continuous struggle, and we have got our own local heroes who have shown us. Yesterday we were talking about Itai Dzamara, one man who checked the regime daily, monthly, yearly, focusing on a particular issue. We are talking about Ngadzori, we are talking about Mako, youngsters who have been consistent and persistent in the struggle. So this is what we think we need to do, all of us. So we need to raise that consciousness. We need to for us to be free politically, we first of all need to free ourselves from fear. All of us are afraid, so we need to free ourselves from fear. The second aspect is that the struggle by nature will take long because it has to be non-violent. You cannot face a junta with violence. That is their territory. You cannot face a military government with arms or with catapults when they are holding tangers. That will be catastrophic. So by nature it has to be non-violent, and non-violent resistance will take time. But we need to also celebrate the few wins that we've had. The women equality gains that we are gaining, the student voice that is growing strong, the church voice that was muted but that is becoming very, very strong. So we have no choice. We need to organize, we need to mobilize. We are united in our misery. I'm thinking that at some point, the policemen who are arresting us when we say we need a living wage, they will not have even the power to arrest us. They are also in misery. What we need is not to hope that the misery will simply work on itself. We need also to conscientize the police, those in the prison service. So let us be arrested. And when we go there, we conscientize them. We conscientize the police, we conscientize the ZPCS. Thank you.